go. Thank you. Although some things are doing quite well in the garden, our cauliflower has bolted, unfortunately, or it's separated, let's say, and before it bolts, I want to harvest the little tops and use those before they actually bolt properly and get bitter. What we don't know is whether it will continue to grow more if we cut these heads off the same way that broccoli does. So what we're going to do is cut them. We'll leave the stalks and see whether we might get extra, like, small sprouting broccoli heads, the same as that, but cauliflower. If we do, great. If we don't, there's nothing to lose. If anybody knows whether it does happen, let us know in the comments. But yeah, we're going to give it a go because we don't want to waste the plants that we've put in. But yeah, we definitely don't want them to go to seed yet because we'd like to at least get these little heads. But they are really sweet, so even just eating a little bit raw, they're really, really nice. They're still crunchy and sweet and tasty, so there's nothing wrong with them. They just don't look like a cauliflower. All of these little heads will be perfect for something like a stir fry because they're already chopped up and little. So we may as well take as many of them as we can and eat them whilst they're nice and fresh. Don't want to put anything to waste. After making some really good progress in our kitchen renovation in the last few weeks, unfortunately we've hit a bit of a snag. We've got a big leak.
Us being us, there's another little disaster in this kitchen build. We've put the light steel frame up and then we'd noticed a patch up here that looked a little bit damp around Christmas time. And we thought maybe that was from us uncovering a bit of paint and then the moisture in the air from doing the plastering. But that wasn't the case. That started to grow and grow and grow, and you can see there's a red line where we finally started to draw it out because it was getting bigger. But the big one for us was these little patches of mould that started to appear. And at that point we knew we had a problem that wasn't going to be the humidity from the plastering. And then when we saw this damp patch as well, we started to do a little investigation underneath. So this plaster, you could hear it was wet and detaching. We peeled it off and we could see the brick was wet, like soaked through. But like the kind of soaked where it's a constant drip and you've got that moisture just being absorbed into a brick. It's dried off a little bit now, but you could scrape off the brick like a hard clay. Luckily that's drying out now. So we pulled that off and then we went across here to where we could still see some damp marks. This was still soft. And then we went past the red line where we could see the water and that was dry. So the red line was a good indicator of where the water had reached to. We don't have any water on this side of the house. So I went to go speak to the neighbour who were very, very nice about it. They happened to be renters next door, we weren't sure. They'd had an issue a little while ago and we'd heard them doing some renovation works, but thought nothing of it. So basically they'd had some plumbing done and then during that process the tap hadn't been put on quite correctly. They phoned the landlord and she was ringing the insurance. We spoke to them on a Saturday. Of course, insurance in Spain doesn't work on a Saturday. So we had to wait for Monday, Tuesday for them to come out and just do a quick assessment. And on the Monday, she sent someone out to go and change the tap that was dripping. It turned out it was a tap underneath the bathroom sink that was just going drip, 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 but straight onto the waste pipe that went straight into the wall. So that dripping was just feeding into the wall for however long it took for them to notice that. I don't know if it was us that flashed that issue for them or if they were already chasing that issue, but very lucky for us, as soon as we spoke to them, it was fixed basically Monday, Tuesday after that. So what are we doing now? One, we're feeling very lucky we hadn't covered this in insulation and plasterboard because we'd never seen it, not known the issue, and it'd have been a right mess. What we've got to do now is wait for this to dry out. As soon as it warms up here, it'll be dried out in no time. It's not wet to the touch anymore, which it was, and there's not really much advancement, but you can see like this salt flaking off and stuff like that, but it's going to be behind some plasterboard, so we're not too bothered in that sense. So yeah, that's a little delay on finishing this wall, but I'd rather get it dried out and ready, and then we can cover it all up when it's safe to do so.
Before I could get on with finishing the last base coat of lime plaster, I fixed the last bits of conduit in place at the right height for where the junction boxes will go. I just used a bit of quick cement for this, but I still needed to hold it in place for a few minutes while it all set. We waited a few days between plastering over the plumbing section and moving on to the next layer to give it time to dry out a bit and harden off, before just layering more on top. I brushed any loose or dusty material off the surface first, and then wet down the wall to make sure the plaster would adhere well. We've found that mixing together the lime and sand first, before adding the water, helps you get a smoother and more thorough mix, without any clumps of lime. You occasionally get some little bits stuck in the corners of the buckets, so we give it a good final mix by hand and check the consistency before putting it onto the walls. It was quite awkward getting into this little corner, but I'm glad that I decided not to put the top of the cupboard on yet, until we'd done all the plastering. Getting into the oven and the drawer sections below was already quite fiddly. If you've seen some of our previous videos, you'll know that we're using a lime plaster in this old house renovation. This base coat is a 3:1 ratio mix of sand to hydrated lime, and it's helping us to even out a lot of the lumps and bumps in the walls that are left behind by the demolition and the removal of the old tiles, adhesives, concrete and plaster. We don't have a hook, so I've just been using the flat plastering trowel to hold material while I use a smaller pointed trowel to do the corners, the fiddly areas and the edges. I didn't quite manage to get this whole wall done before it's time to go get Isabel, but there's not that much more to finish off tomorrow. I only need to go down to the level of where the countertops will be, because all this is behind the cupboard, so that will just have a final layer on it. So there's just this one section, so I'm hoping that's just one more mix tomorrow, possibly two, and then it should be done.
One of the tips that we picked up when researching how to plaster was how important it is to clean down all of your tools when you're done at the end of the day. So we always have a big bucket of water ready to wash everything that we've used. It means it's already clean and ready for when you next want to use it. That's the last section of this wall finished now on that second layer of the base coat. So we're just going to leave that to dry off for a few days and make sure most of the moisture comes out. With it being lime, it does take quite a while for it to properly go off. So we're not going to leave it for weeks and weeks before we put the top coat, because that top coat is also lime, but it doesn't dry as hard and fast as something like gypsum does. So we'll just be careful and make sure that it's kind of dried out well enough before we go to put that top coat on. So probably a few days. We're getting slightly warmer days now. It's more like 15, 16 degrees in the daytime. So it should dry off relatively fast. And then once we've done that, we can move on to that final top coat, which is with the KX16. It's that lime plaster mix. And then we can start getting on with the rendering of all of the brickwork. So we're going to be doing that in KX16 as well, the same lime that we're going to be using for everything else. But we don't want to do these cupboards and units until we've done the walls, because obviously what we don't want to do is be dropping material as we're doing the walls onto these brick units if they've already been done. So we'll be doing those afterwards. So over the next few videos, you're going to be seeing us continue with the rest of this kitchen, hopefully some more work up at the land. It's starting to get warmer now, so it's time to start thinking about getting extra trees in and starting to grow more veg up there. And so hopefully that's what you'll see us getting on with over the next few weeks. So as always, if you've made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate everyone who watches, likes, leaves us a comment. If you've got any suggestions about the way that we're doing things, please let us know. We're complete DIYers and we're just learning from YouTube University. So if you've got any suggestions about doing things better or different ways, then please do let us know in the comments. And for now, I think that's where we're going to leave this one. It's time for me to get washed up and ready to go and pick up Isabel from nursery. So we'll leave it here and we'll see you on the next one.